Let me ask you this. What is the first thing you do when you receive a test result or some unwanted news on your fertility journey? For me, the very first thing that I did was to jump onto Google, fall down the rabbit hole of tell me everything. How much information can I find out about this one thing? There is such a fine line between educating yourself when you're trying to conceive and completely overwhelming your brain with unnecessary information. So how do we find that balance? On today's episode, I want to share with you the tips that worked for me and those that work for so many of my students as well. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing a part of your day with me today. This episode is actually inspired by a listener who wrote to me a few weeks ago saying, "Hey Jen, I wanted to ask you if you could cover the topic of educating yourself when trying to conceive and how much is too much. Where should you be looking to get the right answers? It's hard to know where to start looking for the right help when it comes to increasing our chances of having a baby." I am sure we can all relate to this. And the picture that comes to mind is, me lying in bed at 1 a.m. scrolling through Reddit feeds or Facebook groups for just someone who had the same situation as me and everything worked out. And I wanted that reassurance. And it's a really difficult place to get stuck into. And now we have AI, which is actually amazing, but gosh, the new availabilities that we have now for asking questions and going onto ChatGPT and how many different ways can I phrase this question and what more information can I find? It's exhausting. Just thinking about getting all of this information is exhausting. And I get it. We have such a desire to be empowered and proactive on our journeys, especially as women. And when you first learn that there is so much you can do to support yourself, it becomes quite empowering. You think, well, knowledge is power, and I'm just going to find out as much stuff as I possibly can and employ it all into my own life and my own journey. But at what point does this get harmful? And I want to come back to this in a few minutes, but I think first of all, it is really important to understand why we do this, why we end up in this spiral of needing to know more information, and then we can start to unpack it and come out of it. So let's talk about learning, becoming, empowering. This was huge for me. I remember when I first got this inkling that things weren't going to be easy for me when I was trying to conceive, I had no idea what to expect. I came out of the blue. We didn't have any idea that trying to conceive would be difficult for us. Yet I found myself in these doctors' offices being told, well, maybe you've gone through menopause. I don't think you've got any eggs left. I think that IVF is your only option here. I was just thrown a massive curveball. I didn't think there was anything I can do because it didn't really help that doctors were also saying to me, well, IVF is your only solution here. So when I started to educate myself a little bit, I read It Starts with the Egg, which was very big at the time then. It had just come out. It was like the first big fertility book, and it's an amazing book, really. But I was so empowered by all of this information. I went from feeling so lost with all these doctors just shrugging their shoulders to thinking there is so much on this journey that is within my control. And that's so true, isn't it? We see the impact that the science and the research shows us from different aspects of nutrition and supplementation and lifestyle changes. And there is so much you can do to support your fertility. But the sheer volume of information these days is overwhelming. There are books, there are experts on social media, there are fertility doctors on social media giving out all of their information. There are so many different podcasts, YouTube channels, you name it. Real experts are delivering information all the time, all over the world. And that is great, but it is a lot. So when does it cross the line from being helpful and empowering to really unhelpful? I thought about this a lot. And as I was putting this episode together, I think there are 4 main things that really came up for me and that I see over and over again with a lot of my students, where I think, okay, we need to take a step back and we need to really address the approach that you've got here to information seeking. The first was constant Googling or ChatGTP questions after appointments. And I know that doctors only have a limited amount of time, but where is the line between taking your doctor's advice and asking the internet? The second is feeling chronically anxious about not knowing something. So you think there's got to be something else that I don't know. I've missed something. There's this one thing that I've just got to find out. I think that comparing test results and protocols endlessly with others, so those who are in a similar predicament to you, maybe they have a similar fertility diagnosis, just chronically comparing all of the test results with them. And then the 4th thing is this chronic dysregulation, where it's got to the point where your whole life is affected. So let's break them down. The constant Googling or asking AI for answers. And I get it. Doctors are busy. We get the 10 minutes or whatever it is. And you have questions. Of course, you have questions. This is not your area of expertise, but leaving your doctor's appointment with more questions than you have answers to is not where you should be. And we've had fertility doctors on the podcast before who 1,000% agree with this. Like, I would hate for my patients to be leaving my appointments thinking that they have to go and then Google the answers to so many of the things that I didn't ask them. So if you're finding that this is something you are not getting from your doctor, get a second opinion, get a third or a fourth opinion. There are doctors that you can get online referrals and opinions from these days as well. The Zoom call is doctors can do Zoom consults from all over the world. So if there is a particular fertility doctor that you think is really, really helpful, get in contact with them. I find that these, like the Google and Reddit threads that I used to go down, they were pretty much the apocalypse. There was never any good news. I found that, yes, you can find the information pretty easily, but it's always going to be like the worst case scenario, I found. And it very rarely did I actually feel better from going through this process. And you just think, okay, well, I'll just ask this one quick question. And then you see something else. You're like, oh, okay, well, that relates to that. So I'm going to ask this other question. And it just spirals. Just ask yourself, when did you actually feel better for doing this? And then the next thing that I mentioned was feeling chronically anxious about not knowing. They're like, this one thing, I've got to find the next thing, or I've got to just find the answer to this one thing and everything will be solved. And what do they call this? It's like analysis paralysis, I think it is the term for it. You are so consumed with getting the answers that you spend all your free time digging. And at some point, you're just going to have to trust that A, your body is going to do what it needs to do. B, your doctor is going to do what they need to do. And C, that you have done enough. Like, you have done more than enough. And we're going to come back to how you get into this space in a few minutes. But just knowing that you've been to the doctor, you've done all of the advice from all the practitioners, you are supporting yourself in terms of lifestyle, you have done enough. The third thing we're going to unpack is the comparison with others as well. Oh, comparison is such a killer, isn't it? And not just with infertility, but with everything in life. We see the person who has the things that we wish we'd had, and it seems to come so easily to them. And it's a very difficult, those emotions of guilt and envy and jealousy that come up during infertility are very, very hard to deal with. And I get that. I think that is the main reason that emotionally this journey is so difficult. But I want you to remember that your body and your unique situation and your journey is yours. It is no one else's. And even if you have the exact same diagnosis, you're the same age, all of the things, like, you are still not that person. So your result and your journey is going to look completely different. And again, we just need to come back to that sense of trust, that trusting your journey is going to unfold in its own perfect timing. If you are anything like I was when I was trying to conceive, your pantry probably looks like a mini pharmacy. Bottles everywhere, checklists. Have I taken this? And maybe just like me, you were waking up at 2 a.m. thinking, oh my goodness, did I forget to take my CoQ10 today? Well, that's why I was so excited to discover Overgold from Arxi. This is created by expert fertility nutritionists Stephanie and Monique. Overgold is a 5-in-1 preconception supplement that simplifies your routine. Just 2 capsules a day gives you the powerhouse antioxidants, CoQ10, alpha lipoic acid, vitamins E and C, and the newest star on the scene, NAD+ precursors. Yep. All of that in just 2 capsules, not 10, not 12, or however many I was taking. No more rattling when you walk, just high quality, science-backed support for your reproductive health in the lead up to conception. And because the Arxi team are absolute legends, they are giving you $10 off your first order when you use the code GEN10. So head to FromArxi.com, that's ARXI, and use the code GEN10 to nail your preconception. Always read the label and follow directions for use. Overgold is not indicated for use in pregnancy or lactation. Do not take while on warfarin therapy without medical advice. Vitamin and mineral supplements should not replace a balanced diet. And the last thing that we go into a lot on this podcast is this state of chronic dysregulation. And when you're in that place where you are so obsessed with everything that this fertility journey has thrown at you, it has taken over every moment of your life. You're spending all your free time Googling the same things over and over, researching what have I missed? What could I be doing more? What could I be doing better? And is all you can think about. We really need to address this because I think that, yes, maybe it has an impact on your ability to conceive when you are so stressed and so dysregulated. Sure, but I think the most important part to acknowledge with this is your life is miserable and you don't want to spend your whole life just focusing on this one thing and you have no joy and no room for anything else. So how can we stop ourselves falling into this pattern and trusting that we have enough knowledge? Stepping out of this hypervigilant state and into trust is not easy and it is not going to happen immediately. So please do not add this to your list of things that you're going to beat yourself up about. And as I mention often, these practices and everything that you're going to do to support yourself, it takes time and it takes consistency. It's like doing reps at the gym. We're not going to go and do a session at the gym today and expect to have a 6-pack for life tomorrow. It's going to take time and you need to be mindful of it and give yourself ways of reminding yourself to come back to some of these practices. Know that you're not giving up control. So I think that was such a big thing for me, this idea of, well, I'm so in control of this when I'm the one going through this rabbit hole of searching for information. I'm controlling this, but really it was absolutely controlling me. And I'll explain how your brain does that in a moment as well. But just know that if you're not getting the answers fast enough or you're feeling like you're really dismissed by your doctors, it is easy to spiral, but I want you to notice what happens to your body when you're in these moments. This is key. This is the awareness key that we always come back to. So when you think you're reaching for your phone, you're like, oh, I'm going to get the answers this time. What is happening in your body? So maybe it's this sense of like your heart rate starts to increase, or you feel like you're breathing a little bit more quickly or more shallowly, or you feel really agitated, like you need the information, you need the answers like right now, and you can't sit still, you can't function until you know. I want you just to start noticing what comes up in your body physically, the physical signs that you are starting to get dysregulated and jump into. We are literally switching into fight or flight when this happens. And you know that when you switch into fight or flight, this is not within your control. We talk about this a lot. It is so addictive because your nervous system has said, okay, there's a threat. So what we're going to do is jump into survival mode and do whatever we can to protect ourselves. And the problem is that your brain actually thinks it's doing an awesome job because you've survived. Maybe you're going down the rabbit hole. Maybe you are miserable and chronically dysregulated, but you've survived. You're alive. So in your brain's world, you've done a really good job. So it's going to keep you in that state. It's going to keep you in that idea of, well, I need the information. I need to keep going. I've got to find the answers. So that awareness piece is where we break that cycle. Reframing it, I want you to ask yourself, what if my job wasn't to figure all of this out? What if my job was actually to receive support and to rest and to receive some nourishment in whatever way that arises on this journey? So I've done all of the things I can do. I take the supplements I think I should be taking. I eat well. I'm doing everything that my doctor has suggested. I've got my regulation tools. I think that you need to get to a point where you say, my job is now to look after me. And I think that my doctor's job is to do the medical stuff, and I've done enough in every other aspect. That is really powerful. That energy shift from what can I do now to, well, what can I now receive is huge. It's that huge shift from masculine to feminine energy, that energy of receiving. That is where things really start to change. Even just like breathing into that energy a little bit now, I notice my voice has started to slow down. I feel a bit calmer. It is powerful. I think another thing that helped me was to break this cycle of, I'm just going to ask anyone and everyone for the information, but was to commit to choosing, say, 2 or 3 really trusted sources or really expert voices. Maybe it's a doctor, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a holistic practitioner. I find that holistic practitioners are an amazing complement to the Western medical approach on this journey. So commit to finding those people and then just tuning out the rest. Okay, all of the noise that you see on social media, all of the advice that people want to give you, and make this a rule. And if it's not from one of your chosen experts, it doesn't get your energy. And our brains love rules. Our brains love black and white. So when you say, well, it's not that person, so I don't need to listen to them. that Reddit thread of 1,000 people who are all, throwing in their 2 cents, not one of my trusted experts. So they don't get your time and they don't get your energy. If you absolutely cannot help yourself, if you have to go and get the information on the internet and you have to, and I get this, time yourself. Put a timer on it, put a limit on it, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like max 20, I would say. That's getting into pretty dysregulated states. But if you absolutely can't help yourself, put a timer on it. And when that timer goes off, you are done. Maybe get your partner to go and take your phone off you, because otherwise it won't stop. But that's a last resort. And as I mentioned before, please give yourself permission to go and get a second or third opinion if you have access to that. It is a very, very important thing. I wish I had done that from the beginning. I just took the first doctor's word as gospel and I went through their treatments as they suggested. But what I wish I could have done with my journey if I had gotten a second opinion a bit sooner. So when we are in this state, okay, you've become aware, you've noticed the dysregulation, and in those moments you've noticed what has come up in your body, and you're like, okay, I'm getting really irritable here. I'm really agitated. I've got this need for information. We need to find some things. So bring back your toolbox. And what are you going to do in that moment to get you out of that energy and out of that state of dysregulation? And note that when you are quite activated, when you're in that sympathetic state, things like meditation and calm mindfulness practices are not usually what your body needs. It's that idea of, well, I'm in a stampede of elephants right now and I'm going to say to my brain, let's sit down and meditate. No, your brain's going to say, run for your life. So you might need to do some more sort of stimulating, activating practices to kind of meet your body where you're at. So that might be putting on some loud music, just your favorite song from the late 90s. I'm really showing my age here. Or going for a brisk walk, or shaking your body, or just dancing around the house, calling someone that you can vent to, anything that kind of gets that energy out. And then you can start to bring back those more calming and restorative regulating practices as well. And I always talk about this toolbox of tools, and what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you or anyone else. So when you find these things, maybe write them down. Keep a little list in the notes app in your phone and say, right, I'm going to do this because otherwise the rest of my day is going to be ruined. Have those to come back to. So I hope this has been helpful so far. I want to finish this episode with 2 journaling prompts. And if you're really struggling with what we've talked about today, I think these are going to be really helpful. And journaling is one of these beautiful regulating tools that I think we don't give enough time to because it takes a lot of effort and we don't do a lot of writing these days. So your hand gets sore. You've got to really take some time to do these things, but they are so, so powerful. I got a lot of great feedback from my 3-part series last month about coming into alignment with the journaling prompts that we had at the end of the episode. So when you have a minute, and maybe you want to come back to this episode if you're out walking, but I want you to write down these 2 things. The first is, what is something I already know deep down that I have been trying to find outside of myself? And number 2, if I stopped searching, what might I find within myself? Oh, they are 2 very powerful questions. And like always, you don't think about it, you just write. Let your pen be the channel. Just see whatever comes up. And it is amazing what you can tap into when you find out some of these things that your subconscious is holding on to when you allow that space and time for these to come out. So please remember, your peace is worth protecting on this journey more than anything. So whatever you can do to get into that place, I think you owe it to yourself. So I hope that you have found this episode helpful. If you did, please share it with someone. You never know who is struggling and you never know who might benefit from listening to some of this information as well. If you have 30 seconds, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a quick written review wherever you are listening or watching this podcast, any of the platforms. It is the best way to get this information out to as many people as possible. Now, next week on the podcast, we are speaking with a fertility and loss psychologist about what you need to be aware of in terms of supporting your mental health on this journey. This is a big one and one you do not want to miss. So until then, I am sending you all of my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.